The vault is cold, and it smells like old ink and locked away years. Riven Marsh is not supposed to be here. He's a level 1 archivist's assistant, the lowest classification the Grand Collegium issues, and the vault on sublevel 4 is restricted to certified registrars and above. But the routing slip in his hand says sublevel 4, shelf 7, reference 1109C, and Riven has followed the routing slips exactly because that is the only thing keeping a low-born assistant in the Collegium's employ. He finds shelf 7. He finds reference 1109C. He pulls the folder, and the world he thought he understood slides sideways and falls off the edge. Inside the folder, a census manifest. Mana rank certifications for 4,400 citizens across 9 districts of Valdris. Every entry carries the Collegium's gold seal. Every entry is false. Riven knows because the original records are in his memory. He filed the real ones himself 14 months ago, 6 floors up. He remembers every page he has ever touched. That is not a skill. It is simply how Riven's mind works. He has never told anyone because nobody has ever asked. He is still holding reference 1109C when the lights come on, and High Registrar Cale Morden walks through the vault door with 2 Collegium enforcers behind him. Morden does not shout. He does not need to. The High Registrar is 61 years old and has run the Grand Collegium for 22 of those years, and the stillness in his voice is the stillness of a man who has never needed to raise it. That document, Morden says, is classified above your clearance. Hand it over. Riven hands it over. Your guild card, Morden says. Riven places it on the shelf. You broke into a restricted vault, Morden says, and you attempted to remove a classified record. The Collegium will file a formal declaration with the Royal Registry by morning. You are blacklisted from every licensed archive, guild hall, knowledge institution in Valdris. You may leave. Riven leaves. He walks out into the gray Valdris evening with no guild card, no income, no standing, and no proof of anything, because the only proof he ever had is back in Morden's hands. The Collegium's word is law in this city. It certifies every mana rank. It issues every guild card. It trained every magistrate in the Royal Tribunal. A low-born archivist's assistant against the Grand Collegium is not a fight. It is a filing error, and Morden has already corrected it. Riven sits on the stone steps outside the Collegium's east gate and looks at his hands. And then the Scribe's Codex speaks. System, Scribe's Codex, bearer verified, falsified entry detected, in bearer's record, perfect recall, active, exposure protocols, standby. It appears in his vision like ink bleeding through paper, neat, precise, institutional, not a weapon, not a warrior's system, an archivist's system. The Codex has been dormant inside reference 1109C since before the Collegium existed, waiting for the one specific condition written into its founding logic. A bearer whose own record has been falsified. Riven's Forger's declaration, filed tonight, is exactly that. He closes his eyes. Perfect recall opens like a library igniting floor by floor. Every document Riven Marsh has ever touched in 6 years of Collegium employment. Routing slips, census manifests, intake forms, registrar sign-offs, cross-reference ledgers, surfaces in full. Not impressions, not summaries. Page-perfect originals, every ink stroke, every date, every seal, every signature, reconstructed by the Codex into a provable, time-stamped, chain-verified record that the Codex's own founding charter, which Riven also filed 4 years ago, in the Historical Preservation Wing, defines as supreme evidence, above any living testimony, above any institutional seal, 4,400 falsified entries, and Riven remembers every real one they replaced. He opens his eyes. He stands up. He walks to the Royal Tribunal's all-hours filing window, and he submits the first 40. The tribunal clerk tells him it will be reviewed in 90 days. System, exposure protocol, falsified record present in this chamber. Verified truth transmission, active. Every Codex verified reconstruction in Riven's 40-entry submission glows. Not in his vision, but in the room, visible to the clerk, to the tribunal guards, to the senior magistrate who happens to be walking past. A column of luminous text hanging in the air beside the clerk's desk, neat and patient, and absolutely unignorable, displaying the original certifications line by line against the Collegium's falsified versions. The senior magistrate stops walking. The review period drops from 90 days to 48 hours. The Collegium's legal sends a cease and desist to Riven's last known address, a rented room above a cartographer's shop, the following morning. The order cites his forger's declaration and demands he stop submitting fabricated records to the tribunal under penalty of arrest. Riven reads the cease and desist carefully, notes that it is signed by Deputy Registrar Henna Vale, and walks back to the tribunal. System Exposure Protocol. Falsified record present in this chamber. The cease and desist itself glows, because Riven's forger's declaration is the falsified record at its foundation, and the Codex is not interested in legal nuance. The cease and desist's text hangs in the air next to its own evidentiary chain, which shows, cleanly and permanently, that it was issued to suppress a valid tribunal submission by a bearer whose record was fraudulently altered. Deputy Registrar Vale's signature is at the bottom of a document that has just become evidence of obstruction. Vale resigns before the week is out. Riven submits the next 200 entries. The Collegium tries 4 more approaches over the following 3 weeks. A formal motion to have the Codex classified as an unauthorized magical instrument. 2 attempts to have Riven physically removed from tribunal presses. A public statement from High Registrar Morden declaring Riven mentally unfit and his submissions the product of a forger's delusion. Each attempt reaches the tribunal chamber. Each attempt glows. Exposure Protocol. Verified Truth Active Exposure Protocol. Verified Truth Active Exposure Protocol. Verified Truth Active. The Collegium's legal team stops showing up after the 3rd one. There is no precedent for fighting a codex. The Codex is older than the Collegium. The Codex wrote the founding charter that the Collegium runs on. Every time the Collegium attempts to use its own authority to stop Riven, it is using documents that Riven has filed, or touched, or routed in 6 years of quiet invisible employment, and the Codex has perfect recall of all of them. By the end of the 1st month, 700 entries have been submitted and verified. 691 citizens of Valdris have had their mana rank licenses restored. Some of them come to the tribunal steps just to watch Riven walk in. They don't cheer, they just stand there, and Riven nods and goes inside. By the end of the 2nd month, it is 2,100. Guild halls are reopening memberships. Districts that had been quietly depopulating as unlicensed citizens fled Valdris are stabilizing. The Royal Tribunal has opened a dedicated Collegium review chamber. There is a senior magistrate whose entire function now is to receive Riven's submissions, verify them against the Codex chain, and log the restorations. Riven is still wearing the same plain archivist's coat. He has not raised his voice once. High Registrar Cale Morden requests a private meeting in the 3rd month. He looks 20 years older than he did in the vault. The stillness is still there, but it has changed character. It is not the stillness of a man who never needs to raise his voice. It is the stillness of a man calculating exactly how much he has left to lose. You have 312 entries remaining, Morden says. 311, Riven says. I filed one this morning. Morden sets a document on the table. The Collegium is prepared to offer full charter suspension. Voluntary, immediate. Every registrar involved in the falsification will be removed. All 4,400 licenses restored by decree. You won't need to submit the remainder individually. The process ends today. Riven looks at the document. There is one condition, Morden says. The final submission, reference series M1 through M47. You do not file it. Reference series M1 through M47. 47 documents. Morden's personal sign-off on the original falsification order. Not a registrar acting without authorization. Not an institutional error. The High Registrar of the Grand Collegium, in his own handwriting, directing the fabrication of 4,400 mana rank certifications to consolidate the Collegium's licensing monopoly and eliminate the independent guild system that had competed with it for 60 years. Riven already has every page. He filed Morden's correspondence archive in his 2nd year of employment. If you file it, Morden says, and for the first time in 22 years of running the most powerful institution in Valdris, his voice is doing something unfamiliar. It is asking, everything else can be resolved. The citizens get their licenses. The Collegium closes. That outcome is the same with or without Series M. There is no reason. There is one reason, Riven says. He places reference series M1 through M47, reconstructed, codex verified, chained to spanted, each page glowing with a faint patient light. On the table in front of Morden, and then he picks it up and carries it to the tribunal's review chamber and hands it to the senior magistrate. System, exposure protocol, verified truth transmission, active. The room glows for the last time. High Registrar Cale Morden is stripped of rank, title, and certification before the day is out. The Grand Collegium's found Sheen's charter is formally suspended pending full institutional review. Shh. The two registrars who carried out the falsification are removed and referred for criminal investigation. Deputy Registrar Vale's obstruction charge is added to the record automatically because the Codex has already filed it. 4,400 mana rank licenses are restored by royal decree the following morning. Riven Marsh walks out of the tribunal building into the Valdris morning light. He is still wearing the plain archivist's coat. He has no guild card. The collegium that issued them no longer exists. The forger's declaration on his record has been struck and replaced automatically by the Codex with a single entry in clean institutional script. Record corrected. Bearer Riven Marsh. Classification: unranked. Above institutional record, he puts his hands in his coat pockets and walks home. There are people on the tribunal steps again. He nods. The morning is cold, and it smells like old ink and, somewhere underneath that, something that has been locked away for a very long time and is not anymore.